to be here to share some of my thoughts here. I really sort of having not much things to say, given we have very detailed and broad discussions regarding what to do, what not to do in the early stage of academic career. Just some of my sort of a little bit additional sort of thinking, particularly following John's comment before taking a break. What do we do, whether we are doing our research questions using an international setting, whether we have very awesome identification strategies, whether we have very nice, unique data sets. These are tools. These are tools to serve a purpose for us to identify economically meaningful and important research questions. All right. So it's not the other way around. In other words, for example, I had this P2P transaction data. I've been sitting on that data for almost 4 years because I just couldn't figure out how do I treat a P2P platform. It is a financial intermediary, or it is some sort of fintech, right? So I know there's lots of buzzwords about fintech these days, but for me, I just think about what exactly is an economic question that this unique data allow me to explore in the first place. So this is actually my first thought. And also, I sort of like my research. I like doing work in cross-discipline settings. You're going to see some more papers I'm talking about today, sort of reflect that. But keep in mind here, this type of research is going to take much more time and effort, because you actually have to go through literature in different disciplines, in addition to your comfortable finance area. And the risk here, you can have a higher hurdle, but on the other hand, it is potentially can be very rewarding. Okay, it's not only about the project you're doing, but maybe later on there's spillover effect for you to do something later. But so most important, as John said earlier, you have to love what you do in order to survive in our profession. If you don't have that passion, you don't have that persistence, I don't think you can make it in our profession. All right. So what I'm trying to do today is I'm not saying this is a perfect example, but I'm going to show one of my recent paper, that I'm trying to do this in a way. It's an internal setting. It has some sort of a identification strategy. It's a different setting. Has reasonably interesting data, but trying to do this in the cross-discipline because I had to go through 3 sets of disciplines that I know only one, and I had to learn another 2. But the research question is actually quite straightforward. So let me just using this remaining minutes to talk a little bit about this paper. So this is actually paper I done with 2 of my co-authors, both from China, and you can see actually this is paper on disclosure, but it basically look at a very simple question. Now, we know transparency, we know information environment is important, especially in emerging markets. Now think about from regulator perspective, how do you improve transparency or information environment? You can do 2 things. You can either encourage information production by intermediaries or investors, or you can facilitate transmission to investors. Now, if you look at a lot of literatures on information intermediary, for example, Chris and Joy had lots of papers on media, and we know lots of papers on financial analysts. These are intermediaries, they select information to produce, and therefore their effort affects investors. What we're doing here is actually look at different sides. We're going to look at the dissemination part. We're going to look at how the efficiency of information dissemination affecting investor information set, and more importantly, I'm going to take one step further, look at how firms react through their disclosure strategy. Okay. Now, this paper doing here is that this is part of the derivation part. I'm going to identify an event that we are going to exogenous affects the efficiency of transmitting information. So the event actually has to use in China. Okay, so this is actually the 2010 event when Google was officially kicked out of China. And that we argue significantly increased the cost of domestic investors' access for foreign information, but it does not change the cost for domestic investors' access to domestic information. Okay? And we'll look at how firms respond. In disclosure strategy, once they know investors' certain dimensions of investment information set is altered. And this is where we're actually the learning part. We're going to conduct type analysis on the Chinese language-based Chinese firm disclosure. And so we're going to start with the sample. This is actually a relatively unique size based on mandatory disclosures, on corporate disclosures based on material events. These are mandatory disclosures. As our example test, we're going to look at also the annual reports. Okay, so again, I do this lots of works on China. But first thing is that I don't want to just write a paper about China. I don't want to write a case study. And I have to look at this setting that is actually help us understand some of fundamental economics. So why China is special? Well, first of all, we had this very interesting event, right? And this event, the Google's withdrawal from China, largely viewed as being driven for political reasons. It's not driven by disclosure practice of publicly traded companies. So you can argue that for sure. And nice about China, remember Google is not only kicked out of China, but Google also withdraw from more than 20 countries. So why China is special? Because you don't have a replacement. There's a limited alternatives for domestic individuals to access foreign information because China also have a very high entry barrier for foreign investors and foreign media. And there's also lack of development of formal institutions to supply credible information. So once Google left, this actually created a gap that increased exogenous cost to access foreign information. Okay? And also nicely, so if you read Joey's another famous paper, and this actually in the country populated by retail investors. So which means that this research question is more relevant because these retail investors typically have higher cost and also is better suitable for our research strategy. Okay. And also, again, we're trying to make sure we're comparing apples with apples, not apples with oranges, because a company whose prices of disclosures relatively similar in China as in developed economies since 2007. Okay? And, all right, so let me give a little bit more institutional settings here. I know the Chinese students probably know this already, but let me quickly tell you. So China officially entered, this is my learning discipline here, entered the internet world in 1994. And then ever since then, the users exploded. 2007, less than 16% of population had a high-speed internet access at home. That's our beginning of sample period. Fast forward to 2016, more than 50% of population in China has high-speed internet at home, accounting for 21% of world internet users. Now, you all know this already. As the rise of the usage of internet, so is internet censorship. So it stopped at the Great Firewall. The Chinese government imposed all different strategies to censor internet for sensitive words and access. Importantly, if you're a foreign firm, you want to operate in China, you have to self-censor. Okay, you have to follow the censorship rule. Now, so Google did the same thing. In 2006, I set an agreement with China to agree to follow the censorship rules. As in exchange, they are allowed to provide a local search engine called Google CN. So the Google entered China officially at that time, and therefore compete with a domestic search engine Baidu. So this is a company listed in NASDAQ since 2005. So it's a Chinese version of Google. Okay, I'm going to quote unquote on that. Okay, let me talk about the IC event first, and then talk about the search engine. January 12, 2010, Google made an announcement. They discovered a large-scale cyber attack from China, and in particular, several Gmail accounts of human rights activists who have been long time criticizing Chinese policy. These email accounts were hacked. And as a result, in the announcement, they mentioned they're no longer going to censor the internet search result in Google's website. So after that, if you search some of the political sensitive events, such as 1989's Tiananmen Square events, all the results, all the pictures show that. Importantly, also made some comments that we're not going to work in China anymore. Okay, now you know this thing, right? So this event attracted lots of media attention, and therefore also received a furious feedback from the Chinese government. So pretty much about 3 months later, Google moved search engine to Google Hong Kong. So if you type google.cn, you're automatically redirected to google.hk. Because in Hong Kong, actually local government does not censor right browser. Now, if you do that, you know, Asian culture, right? So do not try to upset people right in their face. And so then the government had an even stronger reaction. So immediately 7 days later, any search on Google website, you can search Google in Turkey, Google in Germany, Google in whatever you want. All the search websites in all languages were banned in China. If you try to use that, you get a DNS error. And then, June 30th, Google ended this automatic direct officially withdraw from China. The important thing here is that this event itself is largely viewed for political reasons. So Google has a motto, do no evil, right? And that seems to be the reason that having lots of conflict with local politics. All right, so now let me talk about, so Google's left after 2010, can something locally replace the role of Google? Well, this is where I learned my second discipline, which is search engines, okay? So these two search engines, actually just like all the search engines, they all have something called geo-targeting. So in other words, to help advertisers to connect location, the search engines will use the words, terms, behaviors, audience in that region rather than a more generic search term. For example, if I type Google News while in Indiana, I get more Indiana news. If I type Google News in California, you actually going to see more California news coming up, okay? All right, now these two companies, both are search engine based, but they have a very different purpose. Google wants to be your search engine on your computer for everybody in this world. As a result, when they sort the quality of the link, they're going to rank the inbound quality higher in comparison to quantity. The local partner, Baidu, actually is not, they don't want to be the search engine of everybody in this planet. They only want to serve the Chinese market. As a result, when they sort the search engines, the search engine findings, they rank Chinese contents higher than non-Chinese contents. In fact, many foreign language pages are not even indexed, okay? And they also do not distinguish clearly between quantity and qualities, and many of their results are based on commercials. You pay more, your result come up earlier in your search base. So actually the Chinese know that too, okay? So basically they're saying that they know Baidu is not good at showing you foreign information. So this is a very typical saying here. If you want foreign information, you better go for Google. You want domestic information, you want to go to Baidu. So now, I'm going to show you one of the hidden secrets of John. Okay, as I promised, at the beginning, John said, he would tell everybody a hidden secret of the panelists. I'm going to show one hidden secret of John today. Okay, so let me search John Karpov. Using the two search engines. No, you mean wait, John, you mean wait, okay? So this is a picture. So you can type John Karpov in Google, okay? And what's amazing is that, I don't even type, John, middle name, Karpov, UW. I just type the name here. You can see here, first of all, John's picture shows up really quickly, right? Also what John likes, climb mountains. That shows up. The videos you do shows up. But look at the keywords here. These are linked to corporate governance, reputational penalties. These are part of work John has done in the past, okay? So actually Google did a pretty good job in showing this piece of foreign information in the eyes of, say, the Chinese, okay? Now, you want to know, if I type John Karpov in Baidu, what comes up? So this shows up if I type John Karpov in Baidu, okay? So you can see, obviously, I don't know which one you like, John, but you can see here, right? Baidu is confused, right? So he has no idea what John Karpov is. You look at all these hidden suggestions, it's out of nowhere, right? So the point I'm making here is that for Chinese users, they probably, regarding foreign information, Google does a better job than the local search engine, okay? So the data part, let me just straightforward here and not boring you on that. We're going to actually collect this data, downloading the PDFs of the corporate press releases from 2007 to 2014. And we want to be very careful here. We don't want to compare apples with oranges. Therefore, we want a firm has to do this sort of disclosure both before and after Google Ads. Okay? So, all right. So quickly, we're ending up with about 11,000 these kind of reports issued by more than 600 firms. If you look at the press release, these are firms disclosing major events that they engaged. About 4,000 more are talking about the activity they did overseas, outside mainland China. And 7,500 is about activity they do within China. Okay? All right, so now, this is the third part of learning I'm doing. how to measure sentiments in Chinese language. All right, so we know there are very well-established work done. Are you doing okay? Okay, good. With very good work done in terms of English here, but fortunately, I learned a little bit more on linguistic side. There are actually vocabularies made a one-to-one mapping between English and Chinese words and assignment of the emotion of the words. So the rest is easy. Creating the variables sentiments based on existing literature, that's pretty straightforward. Okay, and then another thing which I learned very differently is that when you download these disclosures and you have all the words together, you can just creating a segment combining words into phrases. For example, I attend FMA. In English, I know there's 3 words, I space attend space FMA, right? So there's 2 spaces let you know there's 3 words. Chinese language, there's no space between the characters. So you have to tell the machine to separate the characters into meaningful phrases, all right? Good learning, right? So anyway, so we've done that, and estimation strategy, very straightforward estimation strategy. Left-hand side, we measure the tone sentiments of disclosure. Right-hand side is straightforward, definitive. We look at the interaction term. This is the dummy variable if the disclosure is regarding firms' overseas activities. That's 1. 0 if it's regarding domestic activities. And the Google exit is a dummy after the March 26, 2010. So let me just now, and then we can compare the warfare. Let me show you the main results here. Now remember, the dependent variable is going to be the sentiment, the optimum in the disclosure. What's interesting you see here is the interaction term. So what that tells you is that after Google's exit from China, the Chinese domestic firm's disclosure become more optimistic if it's about foreign activities after Google exit, in comparison to similar activities before exit, in compared to similar activities only domestically. Okay? So that's sort of a show up, I mean, not working with the fixed effect here. And the important here is that how do I know I pick up the exit effect, but not something else? So one thing we did is that we're going to look at the cross-sectional analysis, right? So if the investors do have some sort of alternative access to foreign information, maybe we're not going to see this effect. So we're going to actually look at whether or not the firm has foreign investors, whether or not firms covered by analysts affiliated with foreign brokers, whether or not firm has more retail investors relative to more institutional investors. Okay? So other part, fixed effect, anything, we've seen that already. And if you're concerned about the timing of disclosure, we also did an auto-sample test using annual report instead of corporate press disclosures. All right, so let me just quickly show you here. You can see the results does not hold if a firm has foreign investors, because foreign investors do not have this censorship rule here. The results does not hold if a firm is covered by analysts affiliated with foreign brokers. You do not see the results hold if the firm has more institutional investors and low retail investors. Okay. Now, last piece, let me get rid of this annual report part here. Who gained from this game? We're going to look at insider sales at a time when the firm made either a disclosure of major events or releasing the annual reports. What you see here is interesting is that there are more manager insider sales when the firm release disclose a major event. If the major event is a foreign event, there's more sales happen if they are more optimistic about disclosure, especially after Google exit. So the analysts know that the investors are making it difficult to verify what I say, and therefore maybe I can gain something. And there's higher insider sales volume, and then you can see also the higher returns they gain from insider sales. Okay. Now, how do I do on time? I'm good. Just I have 1-2 minutes. Okay. I try to be like Laura. Okay. So now the point here is that how do you put this into a dynamic setting? Right? Can the investor learn something over time? Right? So what I'm doing here is that I'm going to look at this blue bar is market reaction, to the firm's announcement and to the optimism in the disclosure. And you do see over time, okay, this reaction to the foreign event announcement going sort of gradually going down. Seems like investors start saying, oh, you're actually bragging, you're really not that optimistic about the thing. But from a game theory perspective, if I'm the manager, I want to generate more sales, more returns, but I know when I brag about my foreign events, investors are not reacting that much anymore. What's my strategy? I brag more, right? So you do see in the right bar, you see the tone and sentiment start increasing over time, right? Okay, so what is paper about? Well, it's paper about a pain in the back to write, all right? So I learned search engine, I learned the linguistic, I learned the text analysis, right? So that's something good to learn. But the conclusion here is that the firm issue more bullish press releases regarding the foreign investment applicable assets from mainland China. As if they know investors' information set is altered, I'm going to take advantage on the particular dimension in this information set. Okay, and so how do we interpret this? Investors can only do effective monitoring if they're informed, right? If you know something, then you can do the monitoring. So this paper only very straightforward. The efficiency of transmission can potentially also impose a constraint on manipulation by the firms. So because they also affect the way investors form their information sets. Thank you.